You know what blows my mind? Every single culture throughout human history has created myths to explain their world, from ancient Mesopotamians to modern Marvel movies. And today we're exploring how these universal stories shape who we are.
That's fascinating. And what's really striking is how these mythological patterns keep showing up across completely different civilizations that never contacted each other. How do you explain that?
Well, it really comes down to shared human experiences. Take flood myths. We see them everywhere from Gilgamesh to indigenous American stories. And what's particularly interesting is how these myths evolved chronologically, starting with ancient Mesopotamian tales where gods like Enki and Inanna were deeply connected to the rivers that sustained their civilization.
Mm-hmm. And then you look at Egyptian mythology just next door, and it's completely different, all focused on the Nile and the sun's journey. Their whole cosmic understanding revolved around those natural cycles.
Exactly. And what's fascinating about Egyptian mythology is how it created probably the most elaborate afterlife system we've ever seen. I mean, the Book of the Dead was basically an instruction manual for the soul's journey. That's how detailed their beliefs were.
You know what's really interesting? The way these beliefs literally shaped their physical world. Like, the pyramids weren't just massive tombs, they were actually stairways to the stars for the pharaoh's souls.
Then we get to Greek mythology, and oh man, everything changes. These gods on Mount Olympus, they're powerful, sure, but they're also incredibly human. Zeus can throw lightning bolts, but he's also dealing with family drama that would make a reality TV producer blush.
That's exactly why these stories still resonate today. Like, who hasn't dealt with family issues or workplace drama? The Greeks just put it on a divine scale.
And speaking of scale, let's look at how the Romans adapted these stories. They took the Greek gods and, well, made them more Roman, more dignified, more focused on order and authority. But here's what's really interesting. They use these myths to legitimize their own power, claiming divine ancestry through Venus.
So if we move north, the mythology completely changes tone, doesn't it? The Norse myths feel almost like they're from a different universe.
Oh yeah, instead of Mediterranean sunshine, you've got these harsh, fatalistic stories about Odin, Thor, and Loki. And what's fascinating is how perfectly these myths reflected their environment. The long winters, the importance of warfare, the sense that even the gods are fighting against fate.
Well, that's what makes the Hindu mythological tradition so unique in comparison. It's still actively practiced today, with these incredibly complex philosophical concepts wrapped in narrative form.
Absolutely fascinating point. And you know what's really mind-blowing about Hindu mythology? The sophistication of its time concepts. While Western myths often see time as linear, Hindu mythology sees it as cyclical, with multiple universes and incarnations all happening simultaneously.
That brings up an interesting question about how different cultures view time in their myths. Like, how do you explain something as unique as the Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime?
The Dreamtime concept is truly remarkable because it's not just about creation myths, it's about an eternal present where past, present, and future coexist. These stories aren't just spiritual teachings. They're practical knowledge about the landscape, weather patterns, and survival skills, all encoded in narrative form.
And that practical aspect shows up in Polynesian mythology too. Their stories about Maui and Pele weren't just entertainment, they were navigation guides and geological knowledge passed down through generations.
You know what's really striking? How these ancient patterns keep showing up in modern storytelling. Look at superhero movies. They're basically Greek mythology in spandex. The hero's journey, the trickster figure, the quest narrative, it's all there, just with new special effects.
That's such a good point about modern adaptations. We might not call them myths anymore, but we're still using these same storytelling patterns to make sense of our world.
And that's really the key insight here. Whether we're talking about ancient Mesopotamian tablets or the latest blockbuster movie, we're still using stories to grapple with the same fundamental questions. Who are we? Where did we come from? What makes a good life? These questions are as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago.
Well, that really brings it full circle, showing how mythology isn't just ancient history, but part of our ongoing human conversation about meaning and purpose.
And maybe that's the most important lesson from studying mythology, seeing how human cultures, despite all their differences, have always used stories to understand themselves and their place in the universe. We're not so different from our ancestors after all.